the force is strong with this one, and welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Hello there. Today we get to talk about Star Wars. I'm so excited. As many of you know by the title of the episode, we're here today to really explore and dive into the Ahsoka series. I think that this is going to be a very interesting discussion because I am a huge Star Wars nerd, as everybody knows, and was very, very happy with all of the Easter eggs and returning characters and strings that were pulled in this. But I've got a feeling that the person sitting pseudo on the other side of the table from me does not have those same warm, fuzzy, happy feelings.
So I would like to say that I am an above average Star Wars fan. For all the people that have listened to episodes before, I watched the hell out of the original trilogy. You know, I really, really liked the overall saga. The prequels came out. I did watch those and I thought they were okay. Not the greatest. And then the prequels came out. I was really excited for those, and I thought they were there.
They were movies.
Yeah, they were movies. Yeah, we watched movies. But
there was a lightsaber. It had to be Star Wars.
I say that I'm an above average fan, but because of all the content that's come out, I think I've relegated to the casual viewer because I haven't seen the cartoons. I haven't seen all of those. I haven't really dug deep into the books or anything. I know a little bit about that stuff, but yeah, I don't know. So I'm kind of on the casual viewer, above average Star Wars fan level. And so I'm going into this with a character that I only know by what other people say and by their reputation. Ahsoka, very highly revered. Obviously, they made a TV show about her, but yeah, we'll see where this goes. And I'm really interested to look at this from a perspective of the casual viewer and see if I get the appreciation out of it that I should, or am I just missing a diamond in there and it's just lost on me.
Yeah, I think that you're I almost want to fight back at your casual fandom and put you in just your fan of deep fan reference, because it's so vast now. It's crazy. Like, I remember when it was just the original trilogy that was out and there were just a bunch of books, and if you hadn't read some of the books, like, you didn't know what was going on, and people would reference like Thrawn, the character in this, and we're getting off track already, but has been around since the 90s, like, in books.
Get the hell out of here. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, like, I have paperbacks of the OG Timothy Zahn series that I read fucking 20 years ago now. So I think that there's a lot to digest, but you bring up the titular character of the series, played by friend of the podcast, Rosario Dawson, Ahsoka Tano. Talk to me about what you know, or if you know.
So the only time that the first time that I heard that name, I was at Disney Hollywood Studios, and I watched went into like one of the little theaters and watched a little Star Wars appreciation fandom type thing. And I was confused by the name because you said it a different way compared to how I hear some of the others pronounce it. So when I watched it initially, I thought it was Ahsoka Tano, but then I saw the name and a lot of people pronounce it like Ahsoka Tano, not Ahsoka Tano. So that's just like a weird little thing for me. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's heard that, but at the same time, I know nothing about this character. I knew that they were in the cartoon, and I heard that she was awesome. But other than that, I had no clue going into this. So yeah, I mean, that's really pretty much it. I knew she was like kind of weird alien looking. And when I saw some of the stills, and obviously when I saw The Mandalorian, that was like, oh, cool, that's the person that everyone talks about. But yeah, not much. That's I knew enough about her to just be like, that's a good guy.
I like that. I like that you as a good guy. Um, I mean, do you want me to catch you up or do you want me to give you kind of where? Because it's deep. It's very deep, and it's a character that's been around since I believe like 2008. Before that, hang on, let me. I know
Give
that.
me a Cliff's Notes version of the character, and I will tell you what my understanding is of that character based off of the TV show and then her previous uh, appearance in The Mandalorian.
Okay,
Because
so
it's very, very, very interesting to me.
this is a character that I mean, in all intents and purposes, made her debut in a excuse me, in a theatrical release. Um, there was a Clone Wars cartoon movie that came out in theaters when Lucas still owned Lucas Star Wars.
So Clone Wars, you're saying like back to the prequel trilogy, it was going on at that time during the Clone
So
Wars.
the Clone Wars take place between episode 2 and episode 3.
Yeah.
Episode 2 kicks it off, right? They deliver the clones and all that. And episode 3 is where the series ends. And they've been adding to the series for years, and they finally brought it to an end. Well, technically to an end in 2020. In May of 2020, they released like the last episode, which is like hugely revered, and Ahsoka's a big character in it. But it introduces Ahsoka. Essentially, the Clone War starts by following Anakin and Obi-Wan into these battles and stuff like that, and Ahsoka is Anakin's assigned padawan. They hijinks ensues, right? And she develops as a character from like a young Jedi padawan throughout, goes through trials and tribulations, leaves the order, and you know, kind of goes out on her own. But that series is it's like 133 episode series. I know that's a very specific number. It's because I looked it up on that screen. But it's a it was a I thought a really good series because it dived into a lot of the characters, gave a lot of depth to a lot of the clones and stuff like that, and brought us characters that you now are starting to see on different shows like The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and now Ahsoka. These characters that TV show was was run by Dave Filoni, who now works side by side with Favreau. So a lot of the characters you're starting to see after the Mandalorian experiment blew up are Filoni characters getting dropped into this.
So
And it's
he's the one
all
who
leading somewhere.
he created Ahsoka,
He was
the
part
character.
of the he was part of the group, but
Okay.
he worked directly with George. If you watch interviews with Filoni, he speaks very almost deitily of George, right? He's very he looks up to him in a big bad way. And he's learned at the feet of the master, if you will.
Okay.
So he understands kind of George's view and concept of Star Wars, the Force, the Jedi, that whole thing. And that's even for me a layer of understanding and fandom that I prefer to be almost happily ignorant to. Like I'm not one of those people that gets into like I'll argue about a lot, but like let's leave it at good and bad and let's just have fun with it. But like he's very deep into like capabilities and all these things and what this means, and it's almost too much for me, who I would consider to be a bigger than most Star Wars fan. Is I've consumed a lot of content, but not nearly all the content that's out there. Like there are those well above my punch and weight.
Okay. So I'm curious to hear about the character of Ahsoka during the Clone Wars, because I feel like based off of a little like the few second clips that I've seen, with her in it, it doesn't seem like the same character. Now, granted, I have I have kind of gone on the I hate the Jedi bandwagon because they all just turn out to be just bad decision makers and just awful people that ignore a lot of the humanity and uh, you know goodness of people in an effort to just be this is the Jedi code. So is Ahsoka in the TV show and the other theater release for the animated stuff, is she as much of a serious character as she is in the recent release of Ahsoka in
No,
the TV show?
no. She comes in very, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and wanting to prove herself like any, young
Yeah.
person would. But I think that the thing that shapes her is who her master, if you will, is, right? Who she learns at the feet of, which is Anakin Skywalker. They touch on that in this. I
Yeah.
loved the the visual bring back of the Clone Wars in this show. They showed young Ahsoka, which is, a very good visual representation of what we saw in those cartoons and in that movie. And she basically learns from one of the most conflicted Jedi that there were, right? Somebody that does a lot of things impulsively and out on his own and is going through his own emotional journey because he wasn't like you've seen the movies that he's too old, he shouldn't be brought like that was a real factor in how they developed the Anakin character. Again, that cartoon series was awesome in how they developed those characters. At one point late in the series, I don't know the seasons and all that stuff, but Ahsoka gets framed for something and expelled from the Jedi Order. And then Anakin has to figure out, like, oh, it wasn't her, it was this person, brings it back before the council. And they offer her readmittance and she declines.
Oh, okay.
And the series kind of goes away from her for a while and then comes back to her when they re-released the series right before the pandemic when they brought it back because it died and came back multiple times. It started out
Uh,
on Cartoon Network when Lucasfilm was owned by Lucas, and then
yeah.
ended when Disney bought it. Like they stopped it. They didn't really put more into it. And then it came back with a few new seasons when it was on Netflix and then came to Disney Plus. So it's been out there and owned a couple or handled a couple different ways. Disney Plus released already existing non Lucasfilm released like Netflix did, and then Disney Plus made I want to say one or two new seasons of it. But that's not
Okay.
the only place the Ahsoka character's been. That's all pre-Order 66, and they actually show Order 66 in that show, which is awesome. But all pre-original trilogy. Then they bring
So,
Ahsoka back later
okay.
in another cartoon called Rebels, which takes place um pre pre the fall of the Empire.
So with Ahsoka as a character, approximately how old is she?
Oh, she was a child when Anakin was. I mean, she's a little older than she's maybe 10
Older
years older than
than
Luke.
okay, so 10 years older than Luke.
I'd say
Okay.
10-ish, 10 to so I know some fan is gonna rip me with like, she's 14.2 years
I just
older
want to
than
make
Luke.
sure that because I feel like I have the same argument with Han Solo, is that it is a stark contrast. Like if you were a casual fan, or maybe you were a regular fan and you saw her progress through the animated stuff, and you see her in Book of Boba Fett
Mhm.
and Mandalorian and all that stuff. Uh, if you see that same character, is there consistency, or is it just like, whoa, this is like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi?
I think they were very consistent with the Ahsoka character. I
Okay.
think because this series takes place after the fall of the Empire and a ways in with the New Republic. But Leia's still alive in it, as we saw, and it's before the sequel trilogy. It's before the fall of the
Yeah.
Jedi Order, or the new Jedi Order, if you will.
So I just see this as like, because as a casual viewer, just because now that it's like, I think I'm jaded from the sequel trilogy. I think that's what it is. I feel like they are taking these characters to a different place than where what I thought they were before. And it's a lot is missing there. Now, granted, I didn't watch all that stuff,
Mhm.
but just the few clips that I did see, I was like, yeah, it's kind of tough. People change, but do they really? Do they really, really change? I don't know about that. And granted, all the Jedi, with the exception of Qui-Gon, are all just like sticks up their asses, really uptight, and here's the way they do it. So I believe it, and that's the only reason that I'm like, okay, this is justified because it's so consistent with every other Jedi that there's a stick up their ass and they're just so like, just staunch, just that so serious.
Yeah, I think that Ahsoka, the character, has been through like a fair amount of trauma, right? She had she was like Anakin's little sister, if you will, right? And they were together and tight and had a great relationship. And then she sees this person that she looked up to and that she learned from. You know, she doesn't know it directly until later in Rebels, but like fall to the dark side. And then she realizes that she was trained by the Dark Lord of the Sith, essentially,
So
right?
yeah, and that I can see that as being like a very solid turn the page event, right? Like
Well,
there's definitely some trauma there.
yeah.
But
And you
my
also look at,
question,
yeah, go ahead.
but my question for that is that Anakin was her master. Who the fuck approved that?
Yoda.
Because they didn't even grant him the rank of master.
Yeah, no, that was in the show, I believe it was Yoda.
So where's the consistency in that? And
There was
was
the
there
council.
outcry?
Dude, I don't have a good answer for you on that. I think that if I remember back to that movie, which it's been a minute since I watched it, I tried to get my kid to watch it. He was not interested yet. Disappointment for dad. But if I remember correctly, it was more of a way to push him to grow up a little bit. Because while they didn't grant him the rank of master, you didn't have to be a master to train. You just didn't have to be a Padawan anymore. So when he lost at the end of that movie, when they cut off his little
His rat tail.
his little rat tail, he was free to train all he wanted.
That's
Right?
so strange to me. I feel like, and I'm wondering if there are other Star Wars fans that are just like, no, 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 this doesn't make any sense that he's her master. Um, because that's not just something that, you can't just pick someone up like, hey, you want to learn the Force? Come on over here. I will teach you. Like, I feel like the Jedi Order at that time would have been way more strict with actions such as those.
I think that your understanding of how you move into Padawan status is one of the problems with this mindset. Your only view of somebody being taken under the wing of the Jedi is episode 1, where they plucked a 9-year-old out of a fucking desert planet and said, "Oh, you're my Padawan now." And I sound like such a nerd saying this, but this was actually in Tales of the Jedi, another cartoon that came out recently. But Ahsoka was taken as an infant to the Jedi Order, and younglings were trained for a good amount of years until they were old enough to move into that next step of their Jedi evolution.
Okay. All
Man,
right.
dude,
I
you're
mean, I
making me.
get
I don't.
no, no, no.
I don't think I
This
realized
is
I have this much random, useless Star Wars knowledge.
this is fine. This is fine. I have no problem with your knowledge. I just have a problem with my understanding of that knowledge.
Oh,
because it doesn't, to me as a casual viewer or above average, or used to be above average.
yeah, no, it's
It just, I have a hard time grasping that concept. But
it's a lot.
if that's what it is,
There's
then
so
okay.
much content to absorb. Think of it this way: it's a microcosm of the MCU. Whereas if you try and watch Loki right now, that's coming out, the season 2 of Loki, and you haven't watched or experienced anything else from the MCU, you're like, what the hell is going on?
Sure.
So it's similar, but in a much larger fashion because there's a lot more Star Wars content out there than there is Marvel Cinematic Universe content.
Agreed. Agreed. So as we go throughout the rest of this episode, I'm going to try and ask respectfully what some of the information is, just so I can have a better understanding of it. Um, but also there's some stuff that I just kind of enjoyed about this show. So when it came to Ahsoka, okay, so I got that question answered, right? What about the consistency for the other characters? So I'm assuming that Hera, along with Ezra and uh, Sabine, were all in Rebels.
Hera, Sabine, Chopper, all in Rebels. There's a purple guy named Zeb who was in the last season of The Mandalorian, who was also a Rebels character. That I'm
Hmm.
assuming they'll bring into Ahsoka season 2 at some point. But yeah, they were all the main crew in Rebels that I think in season 2 of Rebels, Ahsoka kind of joined as a support at times, as like a secondary support group to
Oh, so she
develop.
wasn't even like a main
She was
character
brought
in
in
it.
after the fact. She was
Wow,
brought in after
interesting.
the fact, after they figured out it would work.
Huh.
Um, yeah. I mean, they brought in a lot of characters from the Clone Wars. Darth Maul was brought back in the Clone Wars and in Rebels.
Okay.
Um, they brought in a ton of Mandalorian characters that you now know from the Mandalorian. In
Do I
it,
really? I don't know.
well, Katie Sackhoff,
Yeah,
who
Bo-Katan.
yeah, who plays Bo-Katan, voiced Bo-Katan in both Clone Wars and Rebels.
Okay.
Those characters that they brought out of that whole Mandalorian thing, they developed in those cartoons. All of the lore, all of the visuals that we got in that show of Mandalore and just what it was, all came from that as well. But yes, to answer your specific question, a lot of the supporting characters you see in this show came directly from Rebels, or in the case of the droid, whose name I am terrible at pronouncing.
Hu
I always
Yang?
want to say Ematep, but that's not it. It's not the mummy. It's like
No.
Uyep,
Okay.
Utep, something like that. Um, he came from Clone Wars.
Okay. With so the characters overall, I had a pretty good time with, but before I jump into like the specifics of it, you being a Star Wars fan, going into this series, what were your expectations of it?
Oh, I was pumped. I love the fact that we were digging into a character that I liked. Um, the fact that they could bring Thrawn out as a character in a real life situation, in a in person, was crazy. The fact that they brought, the only reason I watched Rebels was because there was rumors that they were going to bring this character from a book that came out in the 90s that was huge among Star Wars fans. It was like a 3-book series um that Timothy Zahn wrote. They brought this character out from Legends and brought him back into main canon. Disney brought him back because Rebels was a Disney XD series, like the teen version of the Disney Channel.
Yeah.
Um, they brought that character back, and the fact that they brought him to the big screen, played by the same character that voiced him in the Dave Filoni cartoon, was such a huge thing. So I was stoked, and I wanted to see how they tied it in and how they brought it together.
I was hoping that this was just going to reignite my love and passion for Star Wars. because it's kind of gone. Like I like Mandalorian and I liked Boba Fett just because Mandalorian was in it and Luke and everything, but it is yeah, I'll just say I'm a casual viewer now. That's just I've demoted myself just because like I'm not super into all of the content. So I was hoping that this was going to be coming back and just be like, oh, if Filoni and Favreau are doing this or working together on it, whatever, if they can get me to like the Jedi again, cool. Because I have lost all respect for the Jedi for the most part from the last movies. So it's I was excited. I was interested to see it. And when we were talking about doing this episode, I was like, okay, cool. Now I can sink my teeth into this and also get a little bit of education from you. But I'll have a new set of eyes, which I think is a fresher set of eyes because I want to like the show. So that was my expectation going in.
I think that after expectation and after watching it all, I can understand why you'd be almost a little turned off by it, because after The Mandalorian, which was fresh content, right? Nobody'd heard of Din Djarin. Nobody knew that Grogu was a thing. They only added ancillary characters to that show and, after the fact. They didn't bring in, true canon characters until later. Gideon wasn't something we'd heard of before. So all those characters were new.
I still don't know who the hell Moff Gideon is. So
he's a dude with a dude that escaped. That's what he is right now. He's gonna work with
what?
Thrawn. But
Why? Okay, so Thrawn, um, or as some people may call him, a frost giant from Thor, or Blue Data. That's what he looked like to me. Was Blue Data from Star Trek. I no idea who this person is. And Thrawn was lost on me throughout this. I know he was like a big bad, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, Thrawn, I know the name. And I'm just like waiting. So what's really badass about this guy? Besides, like he has this like secret army, and there's like some sisters that have like magical spells or whatever. I was so confused.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, okay, if Thrawn is this big badass, he's going to do some big badass stuff. And you know what? Guess what he didn't do? He didn't do any big badass stuff. So me seeing, Kylo Ren, the Emperor, Darth Vader doing badass shit, I was hoping for something to happen. Now, granted, he's not a Sith Lord or a Jedi or anything like that. He has some Jedi working for him, or former Jedi. Cool. But I was pretty disappointed in who that was. I can understand why people would be excited, because if you have consumed the content before, like the books from the 90s, yeah, he's a badass. Like, okay, cool. I didn't see anything from that. Am I missing something from the TV show that he did that I just may have like oversaw or like kind of missed?
There's a lot of content from books, from the TV series, and all that make him kind of a Grand Moff Tarkin-ish figure, right?
See, I was kind of the same way with Grand Moff Tarkin. I was just like, okay, he's just he gets blown up. That I didn't think anything major of him either.
And that's where a lot of the ancillary content fills in a lot of context. So I thought about this because I'm like, this is to an extreme of alienating casual fans in some ways, at least in my opinion, right? Like some of the Marvel stuff is getting there, but I think that the road that they're going to till with a Star Wars perspective is they're going to keep putting out great, visually attractive, semi-followable storyline, Westerns that all lead somewhere. And Filoni is supposed to do a Star Wars movie with these characters. He's supposed to take them all to a cinematic perspective. So
I don't know if they need that. I think I need like some Star Wars, like 30-minute clips of like, here's who this person was and what they have. Or even, you know what?
Yeah.
put on like their resume, like at the beginning of the movie, like you know how they used to do in some movies where it's like just here's their stat sheet, blew up some planets, murdered millions or whatever. Like I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Now I know he's a badass, but having a hard time,
But
having a hard time buying it.
I think that your level of Star Wars consumption and the casual fandom that you have almost jades you to the fact that the first Star Wars movie, you didn't know who anybody was. Who's
Right.
Darth Vader? He looks geriatric and he could barely hold up a lightsaber. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he must be big. You know, all of these characters were ubiquitous, and the story and the adventure of show up, save the princess, blow up the thing, and leave carried you through it. And its simplicity was the thing that made you love it.
Sure.
And I think that we're in this age of information where we don't suspend belief as much to accept, and we think we know everything about a certain subject, right? I've seen 9 movies and 3 seasons of TV series, 4 seasons of other TV series. I should know who fucking everybody is in the galaxy. But in the large scale of it, like you've absorbed, and this isn't a knock, this is just the reality. Like if you haven't watched the other stuff, haven't read a few books here and there, like you've absorbed 20 to 30% of the totality of content. And that's okay, because the market for Star Wars fans that have absorbed a considerable amount more than 30% of the totality of content is huge. So I look at these series as fan service in a big way. All of the stuff that comes out from a toy, from a whatever merchandise perspective from all this stuff is big and huge money, and Disney is making hand over fist money on it. You know what I mean? Like in the parks, they're expanding because they're adding more characters so they can get more stuff in their parks, and just kind of go through all that. I really think um using characters from these shows is how they're going to bring back their galaxies, like hotel situation as well. Like they're going to bring, instead of a bunch of people you didn't know, you're going to see or go on an adventure that takes you through, one of these movies. You're going to be able to live the movie, if you will, which I think was always a Universal Studios play. So I think that it's funny that I use it for Disney. But in general, I understand like the frustration part of it, and I feel it with some of the new Marvel shit because I didn't read a lot of the comics.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's meant to be as fulfilling for the casual fan as the deep fan. And I think that's okay, because the original movies, nobody knew shit. They just brought up new things all the time.
Yeah.
Who are these guys in red? Oh, those are the Emperor's guards. And there's there's books about who they are, what they did, and one of them ended up being Luke's wife and all this other shit. Like it's if you look at just the stuff you've seen, a lot of it's very ubiquitous.
Yeah, fair enough. And for me, there's content that I'm cool with, just like I will watch it once. It's entertaining, it's mindless, whatever. For Star Wars, because I like the original trilogy so much, and I would like to say that I was fascinated by a lot of the lore, and I know a little bit, about the books after the original trilogy came out, and the kids and who married who and all that stuff. But I'm wondering if, and I think about the same thing for Marvel content. I've said it on the podcast before. Is this going to be for hardcore fans only, or just people to watch, like the casual viewer? Will they be able to watch this and separate what all of the different lore, characters, and storyline is going? Can we separate ourselves from that and just be like, I'm going to take it at face value because I know I'm going to miss about 70% of this stuff, or I think I'm going to miss about 70% of the Easter eggs, the nods to previous seasons, and all that. I struggle with that. because for me, in my head, the movies that we watch, the TV shows that we watch, we want to make sure that it's worth the time. And if it's not, there's a good reason. And I don't know, I'm stuck between if it's a good reason or a bad reason that shows and movies are building these huge universes or galaxies in this case that it's tough for someone to digest. And you're not going to pick up a new fan if the mythos is so grand. So that's I'm stuck on that because I want people to like Star Wars. I want people to like Marvel. I want people to continue to watch this stuff so the TV shows and movies continue to be made. So it's a struggle, but I'll get into it more with as we talk a little bit deeper about the film or
let me
TV
say
series.
one more thing about that statement. I think your definition of picking up or supporting new fans is binary. And I don't think this is a binary subject, just like Marvel. I think you've got to give a good product with good acting and action and the whole thing and make it, well, this is compelling. But your goal isn't to just say, yes, I satisfied these fans and they're keeping up with it. Your goal is to, one, satisfy those deep fans and keep them where they're at, right? Retain your best customers. Give them something that really get like opening their wallets for everything, right? Like those people you want to take care of. And you also want to kind of tickle and say, hey, you casual fans, you don't know everything you think you know. Maybe you should watch these other things. Maybe you should dig into this other material. You'll find some things you might like.
Sure.
Right? You've got a fan base that, unlike Marvel, who got a new movie every year, 2 movies a year, movies and series, right? In the course of the MCU, that went 20 years or 10 years, another 3 movies, and then almost 20 years, 10 years, something like that. And then another,
I don't know what the time frame is like. Dude,
yeah, I don't realize how old I am sometimes. And it's just like
15 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's a long time between those things. And a lot of the things that fan group had to get was things released subsidiarily, right? And they also went through a huge the course of aging, right? People that saw Star Wars in theaters in 1977 are what, like 60 now, 60, 70 now, depending, 80. So these people consume fandom in a hugely different way. Like when they were at the peak of their nerddom, say in the 80s to 90s, they're reading blogs and fan fiction and books put out by Del Rey. Their fandom is in what's now the extended universe, not the newer stuff. So they're even bringing back extended universe characters to give them their little tickle of nostalgia. Star Wars has to touch such a wider age range and base of nostalgia than Marvel does, only because Marvel, I think, hasn't been consumed in the same way as Star Wars, media-wise. Star Wars has been mixed media since the beginning. Marvel has always been the comic. So if you read a comic, you could go back and read the comic. You do the same action until there were movies.
Comics, cartoons, TV show. There's a lot of Marvel stuff out there.
Cartoons told the story that was in the comics. Very rarely was there divergence from the comic that created this whole new character and whole new evolution of Spider-Man or whatever, right? I mean, what did we get? We got X-Men 97, which basically did the X-Men comic. Threw in some curves. I know Rogue's story was, but other than X-Men 97, like Spider-Man told Spider-Man stories with Spider-Man characters who had all the same names and basically did the same thing.
I think your expertise of Star Wars and assumptions on Marvel is getting a little bit muddy there, because you have stuff like X-Men Evolution, the cartoon, bringing in new characters and a team that never existed in the comic book pages before. There were some new things that were brought into that. If you look at the X-Men, the original cartoon series, X-Men 97 is going to be coming out. With that series, those people were never together on a team. They were always broken up into two separate factions. So I disagree with your statement on that. And then you take a look at some of the liberties that they did with the X-Men movies, the original X-Men movies. Very different in comparison. And so,
But
yeah, I
those
mean,
never, I want to say that those are like Sony Marvel movies, right? Where very rarely were they meant to build on the greater canon.
sure. Right, right.
Where Star Wars always has been meant to build on Star Wars. All
Yeah,
of
I
those
agree.
books and things that came out in the 80s, the 90s, all of those stories were all approved by Lucasfilm. It wasn't like one group going out there. Like everything was tweaked and aligned, and it's crazy how the machine of Star Wars worked before there were computers and the internet and all this. Like all of that content was so good then. Now it's almost like they have too many tools to make cool shit.
Well, that I was just about to ask you. So, do you think the overall universe building is the correct way to go? Or should there just be like a nice, tight beginning, tight ending, and that's it?
If people flock to something that gives them joy, the way it's delivered doesn't matter. And nostalgia is such a dopamine flex right now, and it really is driving media and cinema and a big part of it. Like it's not artistic expression. It's some there's some artistic expression going on in cinema, but a great part of the big money behind cinema is in nostalgia and dopamine and like warm comfy reunions, and that's what they're doing, and that's where the money's going. So I mean, I keep watching it. I love it. I'm excited to let my kid watch all of it when he's excited about it.
So, when it comes to the overall characters in this, so we talked a little bit about the crew from Rebels and everything. What did you think of Ahsoka and Sabine's kind of hesitant partnership and an eventual, Sabine becomes her Padawan. What did you think of that? Did you like Sabine as the character portrayed uh, in this TV series? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought the arc that they built was good. Um, they didn't touch on Sabine being Ahsoka's Padawan in Rebels. Um, because they didn't talk about Sabine trying to be a Jedi in Rebels. That's a new wrinkle to that character. But it was a character that was, conflicted and not in the right place, or not in didn't have like a place she felt comfortable as to where she wanted to be. So it aligns with Ahsoka entirely as a character. So I think it's something that fans that know those two characters could accept, and it's a great grounds for their interaction and their back and forth for sure. I don't mind it. It's new though.
So, and this is kind of going in the timeline because Sabine looks awfully young, right? And so was she like a baby in the Clone Wars?
Yeah, Sabine was late teens, early 20s after Return of the Jedi. So post Empire.
Okay. But she was so wait a second, but she was Rebels was after. I'm starting to get confused with the timelines now because you've
Oh,
got
I'm
Clone
sorry. I'm
Wars,
sorry. I
right?
said Return of the Jedi. I meant Revenge of the Sith. Rebels
Okay.
takes place at the end of Revenge of the Sith
Revenge of the Sith. Okay.
and deals with the formation of the rebellion, and the rebels show concludes with
Well,
the attack on the Death Star.
okay, so that doesn't matter then, because Sabine is smoking hot for a 50-year-old, if that's the case. Because that's how far off we are, right? Like that's another 20 years on top of the Revenge of the Sith. So it's kind of silly that that's the case. So now I'm starting to see some holes that are being poked in this ship. And
Well,
so yeah, I don't know.
Ahsoka takes place after
After Jedi.
yeah, you're right. Like 15 years after.
So she's like 50, man. She
No,
looks
not
damn
15.
good. She looks
Like
good.
5 years after the fall of Endor,
I think
I
it's
think.
something like that.
Yeah.
It's after. But during that time frame, there's that time period between Rebels, which is after Revenge of the Sith, and then to the point where they're at now, which is after Return of the Jedi. She's not a kid. So I'm okay. I'm willing to not pay
I
attention to
would
that.
say that she would be close to, well, no, Luke was born at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So yeah,
Luke
her and
is like
Ahsoka are pretty
20
close in age.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like 50. So I don't know, man. I didn't know the timeline as to when these characters came into play, but after you
Mhm.
saying that, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
But I'm fine. I'll omit that. But doesn't mean to say that I won't, bring that up because she's very immature. So granted, there's different species out there in this galaxy far, far away a long, long time ago. But at the same time, the realism, just like you kind of pick on some of the realistic things, which sometimes I don't think you should, but I'm picking the point of the realism of aging throughout this because she looks human. So should she not age as a human should? I understand the whole Yoda thing. I get it. And maybe that's just how I have to look at it is people age
Yeah.
differently at that time
Yeah.
or
So
in
if
this universe.
so, looking at I googled how old Luke was at the end of Return of the Jedi. So in the Mandalorian, Luke is like 28 in
Okay.
that appearance in the Mandalorian, which would make Ahsoka like 38 or 40-ish. Well,
No, like 50. Both are all like they're all 50. 50 and over. Ezra, probably 50. I don't even know his backstory. Probably 50.
hey
Right? I
man,
mean, that's the time frame.
I don't know how long people live in that age because they don't get into it. It's never a thing. I mean, if you look at it as a thing, you know, Han is like 30 or 40. It's like what, 30 in A New Hope, and Leia's like
Same age as
it's like
Luke.
18, 19. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I get it. Like I said, I'm not trying to poke holes in that, but I think that's something as a casual viewer from a logical point of view, because that's the only way that we can approach things, right? Is a logical point of view. Granted, this is fantasy, sci-fi, so it's like, okay, I at least I have to see where my scale of realism is. And when it comes to aging and maturity, aging, I'll let go, right? Because you got the Grogu Yoda thing. 900 years compared to a 50-year-old baby. I get it. Okay.
mhm.
Um, but the maturity level is something that's like, so you're telling me that Sabine didn't really learn a whole lot in that 30 years between, hanging out with Ahsoka at that time? Like, that's kind of tough. That's tough for me to understand. But I did like the actress who plays her, and I thought it was a good character because I liked in my eyes as a casual viewer, the twist of her being a Mandalorian, but also being very proficient with a lightsaber or, adequate enough. And so I thought that was really cool. And the little nuances of, you know, Ahsoka and her kind of butting heads, and then both of them willing to kind of accept the facts of here's the reality. Okay, I might not be really, really great with the lightsaber. And so when Ahsoka calls out, Sabine, blasters. Like, okay, cool. I'll ditch this and I'll start to do what I'm really good at. So I like that. I like that back and forth and the growth of their relationship, their journey as individuals, and Sabine kind of accepting who she is. Like, what can she do proficiently? What is she just, okay at? And so it's nice to see some of that because we haven't seen any real growth from everyone with the exception of Grogu, and that it's kind of nice to see. Like, you didn't really see that with Rey. It just happened, right?
Yes.
Like, so
Rey's a clone, man. She's a magical clone. You're
it's a
gonna hate.
believable it's believable for Sabine to grow within a TV show as opposed to Rey. Like, I know the Force, I get it, I can do all this cool stuff.
Well, there's a reason that Sabine's so good with a lightsaber. Is because
What's
she
the
used to
reason?
have the dark saber, and she used to
Oh,
train with Ezra lightsaber versus dark saber
no shit.
in
Okay.
the
Well,
Rebels show. Yeah,
that would be so cool to know. They didn't drop
you gotta watch
any
some cartoons, bro.
but they didn't say anything in this. Like, it would have been really cool. It's like, oh man, I wish I could have had my dark saber right about now. Like, that would be so sweet because like they could do a callback. Like, I don't know. I would have appreciated that because not knowing what the dark saber is, only seeing in the Mandalorian, I'm like, oh, what's the deal with this thing? Like, I would have liked that
Yeah,
as a little
I think
Easter
there's a
egg in there.
couple of those in this show. Like, um, Hu Yang, I got the droid's name right. Was taught younglings at the Jedi Temple. Like
Yeah.
he was in Clone Wars and he did that. And uh, um, I loved one moment they put in the show that they didn't put in anything else, that he started his stories with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That was like, oh yes, they did a thing. But they also brought in small things like when Ezra rebuilds a lightsaber, that hilt top that he picked was Kanan's from Rebels, who was his like master, if you will, the Jedi who trained him.
Who's married or who was the
Yeah,
father of
who's
Jason, who,
yeah, who's
Hera.
Hera's baby daddy.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, essentially that was like a huge, that was just like there were those little pockets of just for like deep fandom that I think they put in there. But I also think that they didn't stop the show for the casual viewer.
So with the whole expanded universe, the characters, I feel like for the casual viewer, you just have to be along for the ride. So it's like, okay, I'm going to hear a lot of names and I'll see a lot of people that I have no clue who these people are. I'm just going to figure out who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Um, the group for the Rebels group, I want to talk a little bit about Mary Elizabeth Winstead for her as that character because for the longest time leading into this TV show, because I didn't watch it when it first aired, I watched it once everything was released. There were so many memes of her in her outfit, and it's like the reason why I watch Ahsoka, and it's just like all Mary Elizabeth Winstead up there. So was
She was heavily objectified.
oh god, yeah, like I would go Captain Kirk with her, no problem, no problem. Like I will have some intergalactic species relations with that woman, but she is, I like her in everything. So she's been in a lot of movies that I really really enjoy, and I thought that she brought a different degree of maturity and just aura to this show. So I was zoned in. And off of Ahsoka, like so I'm not really enjoying Ahsoka as much as I thought I would because she became the stick in the ass old Jedi to where it's like everything's serious. You have to follow everything by protocol. Thank God for Huyang because that was like the only way to kind of help bring some levity to the conversations and scenes. So I like that dynamic. So that was a good balance. Like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of the Jedi anymore, but one thing that I did enjoy is them finally getting to Ezra and Ezra using his force abilities. I'm like, oh, cool. Here's a guy that can use his force abilities, and he has a past with him, so awesome. And it was just I haven't seen some really good action from Jedi, and this was a show that brought it to me. So thank God for that, because it was just like, yeah, sweet. Finally, I can like a Jedi. So I liked Ezra as a character, although I was waiting for him to die in the series. I thought, they travel so far and look for him for so long, and they finally get to him. I thought for sure one of them was going to bite the dust.
I thought that they took the journey of Balin Skull in such an amazing way for a deep fan, because I'm assuming that's what you thought, that because he could whoop on Ahsoka, that he was going to kill Ezra, that those two rogue Sith were going to go exterminate this, threat to the Empire, if you will.
I
And
didn't
I
think
think
he was going to kill them. I thought that there was, and I kind of got that from early on in the episodes, is that he had he had some sympathy for them. He's like, I don't want to kill Jedi. It's a shame that that I will have to kill them, but I don't really want to. And so that's where I got it. So Ray Stevenson, RIP, by the way, the best Punisher. He is so good in this, and yeah, I liked his character, but yeah, I didn't think he was going to go on the murderous rage. I didn't think he had it in him. I actually thought there was going to be a little bit of maybe not a full turn, but almost like like a uh, Kylo Ren type of thing, where it's like, yeah, I'm a bad guy, but I'm gonna learn that my master's a douchebag, and then I will either sacrifice myself so they can live. So that's what I thought that was gonna be going that way for Balin.
I'm surprised that you weren't more like rawr about it, because this is the first time we've seen people with red lightsabers not serve the Empire.
Well, I mean, the Empire's gone. It's just Thrawn, who's ooh, he's supposed to be this big
Well, and
bad.
it's the
Still don't
First
know what it
Order.
is.
The First Order is like developing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
during this.
Um, yeah, I'm just kind of, still confused about that because I still don't get the whole First Order thing. I really don't. Even after watching the sequel trilogy again, I'm like, so I know they talk about it in the crawl. How did they establish, power again? Like it just seems so weird to me.
Yeah, no, it's a bunch of remnants, and there's backstory to it, but it's again, you got to go deep.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I
that's
understand the plight of the casual fan in the expanded universe, because you have to be not only committed, but you have to want to learn more.
yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
resources like Wikipedia is a thing, not just a tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, there is a full-on like Lucasfilm and fan kept database and resource that you can dig into. It used to be you'd go to Barnes and Noble and buy like the
Yeah.
complete Star Wars universe books, which I have like 3 of them or 4 of them, right? Because they used to release new ones. It was a cool thing. It's never a cool thing. It was a thing for me. But like, you used to be able to keep it in one bound volume. Now it's so massive that you gotta get into it. But I think that a lot of the EU material that's out there takes more of a route that Andor did, with some of the political things that went on behind the scenes, to really build out the First Order and the way that the cell of the Empire then was reborn, if you will. But I also love the way that they talk about the Jedi, and even ex-Jedi like Balin are seeking more meaning in the Force than just power or justice. And I
Yeah.
think that is so cool. And that's one of the things that I know nobody that's a casual fan understood at the end of the show when he's standing on these random statues. Those statues tied directly to some episodes of Clone Wars that have to do with the beings that control the Force. Like it is, they've set up such a nerd fest for if they do another season or a movie or whatever. Like they're gonna have to recast Ray Stevenson, who's the second best Punisher, Dolph Lundgren. But
Oof.
yeah,
Rough.
yeah.
Rough. And no disrespect to John Barenthal, but yeah, I was just very after Thomas Jane's Punisher movie, I just wasn't a fan of it. And then I actually bought at Hollywood Video, uh, the Punisher War Journal movie. And I was like, oh, cool, there's a Punisher movie. And it was everything that I wanted and more. Yes, it's campy and it's kind of trash, but at the same time, I
I
like my Punisher killing people by the dozens.
I
So
think
that's what
I
I
think
got.
I just mentioned Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher, so don't talk to me about campy and yeah,
But yeah,
terrible.
yeah. But yeah, no, for that character, what was his apprentice, if I'm using the right word, what was his apprentice's name? Um
Shin.
sure, yeah, that's what it was. I feel like that was like a cool thing. So he's not Sith, correct? He's just a Jedi for hire. Is that what it is? And his
So
little
the
apprentice.
red lightsabers are like a Sith thing. Um, because to gain them is like a use of the dark side. So it is an evil Jedi or an evil Force user like sign or thing, but
Okay.
I don't think that they're not the Sith in the way that Palpatine is a Sith, that he was taught by a Sith and his master was like there was a line of succession there. I think that it's more of just this Force user who let anger and a search for power take over, and then he could have searched out different Sith temples and learned about it, but he's not a Sith, and I could, they could have made, there could be books with him in it, but I'm pretty sure that he was a new character because they changed some of his backstory on Wikipedia. I didn't like know it beforehand. I just read an article about it, but they're looking to build out some more of him now.
Okay, so with that being said, so back to Obi-Wan,
Mm-hmm.
like Riva and all those, like the third, fifth, 17th brother and sister, are they Sith?
So that's a good question, and that was touched on a lot in Rebels. So the Inquisitors,
Yeah,
as they're
that's what
called,
they were.
were agents that Vader and the Emperor trained to hunt Jedi. So they were either defected Jedi or Force users. Most of them were defected Jedi that claimed or pledged fealty to the Emperor, and they weren't like, because Sith there's only supposed to be two, right? Master and
Right.
apprentice. So
Okay,
they
okay,
were
okay.
like an evil task force, Tiger Team Evil.
Okay. So, oh man, I feel like the more that I find out about this stuff,
The more that
the
you try and rationalize it, the more it's gonna be frustrating.
yeah,
And
that's exactly what it
I
is.
think that, well, but I mean, it's like the conversation we had the other day where I was talking about Haunted Mansion and the real estate like reality of it. Like you've got to suspend disbelief and just accept that this is a person not working for good. This is an agent of good. This is somebody that's conflicted, and just kind of move through that ambiguity, the ambiguity, not ambiguity, not a word. But
But
move through that ambiguity to let the story open itself for
but
you.
that's for me, it's not even, I'm kind of pausing my reality button. So with that, it poses a problem for me because now the Jedi are the worst. The Jedi are the worst. Like there shouldn't even be Jedi. There should just be like because you either become like old and a stick goes up your ass and you become like just this negative Nancy, or you just defect to the dark side anyways. So it's like this is so funny to me. Like I have not met besides Ezra, I have not met a Jedi that is like, oh, I like their outlook on life and their respect towards people. Like I've not none of
I
them
think
whatsoever.
I think that the Jedi fall prey um to an old Dark Knight quote, right? You either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, because
Yeah,
power corrupts and power creates blindness. And I mean, the order, it's just like any kind of um move towards right or wrong. Like right and wrong aren't black and white. There's ambiguity, there's circumstance. And if you're the peacekeepers of the galaxy, you're going to be on one side versus another, and there's ambiguity. And there are some pieces of content where they really visit the the corruption that is seen in the Jedi. There's Tales of the Jedi, which was a really more recent cartoon that was out, where they show the turning of Count Dooku, which I think was super interesting. They show a lot of the questioning of some of the things that the Jedi Order did or didn't do, um, and some of the blind, rule following that you mentioned that went on. And I think that, as politics became more of a driving force in their support of a political forum with the guise of democracy on it, even in our current society, you see a bit of righteous ambiguity to the things that are done in the name of justice. But the people they're done to, is it justice for them? So I think circumstance is a big part of perception. And I love the fact that it's a way to teach a lesson, right? It's a way to teach people, or make a social commentary on, yeah, we stand up for everything that's good, but who's telling us what's good? And everything happens from a certain point of view.
yeah, it's a lot, and I appreciate your take on that. It's I think I'm just gonna go with the dark side. I think I'm either like just Team Empire, First Order, whatever.
Yo, I get it.
I think that's just what it is.
The more you tighten your grip, though, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Hmm. With we talked a good bit about like the main characters, or at least kind of going into their backstories and stuff. What are some of those other Easter eggs or appearances or cameos that you were just like, oh, sweet, that maybe the casual viewer wouldn't have known about?
So all of the Night Sisters were huge to the storyline of Rebels. And Dathomir as a planet is where Darth Maul is from. And they dug deep into Maul's backstory in Rebels. So to see that they brought Night Sisters into this, which was completely unexpected, was honestly really cool. They brought the sword, which was in another episode of the cartoon at some point. Like they brought a lot of that back. I think that from the casual viewer's perspective, where they feel like, shit, everything has to be an Easter egg. Um, there's a lot of things that didn't have explanation, even for deep fans, like the zombie troopers, the stormtroopers. Like they were obviously, like dead people that were arisen again. They were zombified, if you will, which was something that the Night Sisters did during a battle in yeah.
So time out on that then. So you're telling me a Sith Lord can't bring someone back from the dead, but these Night Sisters can't?
It's creepy magic, bro. It's creepy green magic.
So the Sith suck too. God damn it.
It's the reanimator, dude. It's the reanimator. But no, you got to remember your favorite movies, the sequels, they actually can just touch each other and heal themselves. Remember? That's a new thing that they did that nobody knew how to do.
I'm okay with that.
I'm totally not okay with it. Why did Qui-Gon die then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about the I got stabbed with a lightsaber and I was fine versus I didn't, though.
And I disappeared.
The explanation was Qui-Gon got stuck through the spine as opposed through is a wound in the abdomen. But either fucking way, like,
it's a
are we diminishing the power of a fucking lightsaber here? What's going on?
I'm okay with healing because that's something that someone can find out to do. But from the original, or I'm sorry, the prequel trilogy, right? Anakin is looking for a way to save Padme, and he cannot do it. But some rando chick that Darth Maul's, his home planet is from, she can do that.
They are
granted, it's not
witches, dude. They're fucking witches.
Yeah, but you know what, man? So the Sith should know some witchcraft. They should absolutely know that shit. And if there was Darth Plagueis knew that stuff, cool. I'm good with that. But the fact that the Emperor can't pass that down, or I don't know. I feel like no one in the Empire should have died. They should have just hey, sister, come aboard this Death Star, and you're just going to keep this army going, and that's it. But Rebels would have not stood a chance. But
to the dominance that the Sith supposedly look for in Clone Wars, the Empire slaughtered the population of Dathomir. They came in and killed them all. They didn't want partnership. They wanted dominance.
That's fine. But you know what people do to dominate something? They steal all their best stuff and they make it their own. That's what they should have done.
But they didn't know the spells.
Done it the Chris Columbus way. That's what he should have done.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no.
Christopher Columbus, not the director, the shitbag explorer. That's what I meant.
Yeah, no. That was to continue answering the actual question. That was something that you kind of got. The Anakin Force Ghost in the World Between Worlds, which I'm sure just was why is she standing on a road or a platform somewhere random? That's something from Clone Wars and something from Rebels that is still I'm not even fully in on it. I accept that it exists, but I don't understand sometimes where it fits and why it fits. It's just I went back and rewatched the fucking cartoons to get the explanation, and I'm still it's just a World Between Worlds, man.
So what's more believable, that or Luke projecting himself?
Force projection was new too.
But what's more believable in your opinion? Just I'm curious to know from the super fan perspective.
I would say the World Between Worlds, because there's a metaphysical explanation for it, whereas the projection defies the laws of matter in a big way. I'm here, I'm there, I'm every fucking where. Luke Skywalker's Roy Kent, basically.
So love that reference. But yeah, it's okay. I would agree with you. Because I was okay with it. Because what does every movie that has that near-death experience, where do they go? They go to that weird place.
They go to limbo. Harry Potter did it. Here's the thing about temporal self-force projection that I say fuck no about. The Emperor never did it. The Emperor used the little hollow projector, and I'm I'm sorry. Luke
How?
didn't. Fucking Yoda used the holo projector. Fucking everybody did.
Yeah.
Everybody until that movie used technology. No, 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 no,
They
no, no.
but they would have died if they would have done it the other way. So
I, whatever. Fucking no is what I have to say.
hey man, I
But
still
apparently,
think
Luke and Leia could both do it. Leia did it as Han Solo, though, which is like a step above Luke. Carrie Fisher wins.
yeah, yeah. I still I'm gonna get that hashtag growing again or fuck. I'm gonna get that
Though,
hashtag going again. Luke has no cardio. Hashtag Luke has no cardio. He sucks.
oh man. Though I will say one of the best pieces of fan service in this was bringing Hayden Christensen back. Like
That
they
was
brought
cool.
one, they also brought 3PO into it, which was
Yeah,
actually Anthony Daniels,
I
which
know, right?
oh, I had no idea was happening. I watched the episode, I was like, oh my god.
Was there an explanation as to why he was just sent there for by Leia? Because like there was no communication to Leia
Die.
about stuff, right? No. I'm saying like there was no communication to Leia about this mission. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm saying what probably happened is uh because Hera was a general in the rebellion, she knows Leia.
But that was this all off screen? Like, hey,
Yeah.
Leia, can you approve this mission? Like, none of
Yep.
that happened, right?
I would assume it did off screen.
Off
Yeah.
screen, it
The
happened.
way it
But
was
like,
implied that you just described it is how I took it as well. And you got to remember, Ahsoka has a relationship with Luke, which we see in The Mandalorian, which
yeah,
would only translate to her also if Leia was trained as a Jedi, having a relationship with Leia as well.
sure.
So it makes sense that Leia would intervene. It lines up. That is the most believable thing that they did, right? As opposed to moving all the things that you have to assume are fucking coffins, like all of these things that are going on. That is very, in my opinion, like aligns and was the most easy to swallow stretch in the entire show.
Yeah. So speaking of some of the cameos, I really enjoyed the fact they brought in, let me make sure I get the name right, Carson Teva, played by Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. God, I love that character. He's such a great actor. I love the stuff that he's in, and I love the fact that they brought him in for this. And I unfortunately I wanted to see a little bit more action where he kind of like takes some people out, but I don't know. Is he just basically like Paul Blart Galaxy Cop right
Yeah,
now? Like,
yeah,
is
I
that what
think
he is?
so. I think so. Um, Completely fabricated in the Mandalorian, and that's the only place that he lives. Like, never heard of this person before then. But again, they're
Love him.
combining crafting this world.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And the fact that, you have an ally for, there's obviously some gray area from the politics aspect of everything, right? So there's the realistic aspect that people can probably appreciate. Yeah, where the empire's gone, but hey, we needed to hire some people. Not all of them were bad. And then you have people that are, bringing up some of the like the Mandalorian conflict and everything like that. So it's just like, okay, cool. We're bridging that gap of connecting it to Boba Fett, Mandalorian, all that cool stuff. And I hope he comes back for more stuff and other shows or movies. That'd be really cool. But 3PO and Carson were my favorite cameos, obviously. Carson probably more so than 3PO. It was just nice to see 3PO.
I think that the storyline they gave where the former Imperials were helping, get Thrawn, like there was this undercurrent of still Imperial loyalists, is where they step off the next show and why they can make a Thrawn returns and now he's a threat to the New Republic. The thing that isn't explained and that has no explanation or bearing is, why isn't Thrawn mentioned in the sequel trilogy at all? And what happened to why he's not? Like, not even oh, we took down Thrawn, we could take out the First Order. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not a freaking thing. So I'm really deep in my heart. I'll tell you a secret. I hope they retcon the fuck out of those movies.
So that's something else I wanted to ask because I had heard or read or saw something that they kind of took stuff that was canon and just completely went a different way with that. Is that true? Was there things that were like, oh, that definitely didn't happen? That they're changing, like Filoni is changing right now as they're going forward.
I don't think they're not a significant amount. Not anything that
Okay.
that I so again, I'm maybe at 60% of total Star Wars content like eaten up, because there's so much book stuff that I can't. It's
Sure.
so much. I like other things than Star Wars. Um and some of the Star Wars books that I've read are retconned anyway, right? Because when Disney took over, they made all those OG books like,
Yeah.
these are legends, not canon. So they keep releasing new canon books and new canon things, and the string loosely attaches. Let's put it that way. But there's a lot of
Okay.
slack to be able to flex to where they're going to go. I'm sure,
Any
or they're just
other
going to flush it all again. Who knows?
any other cameos that you really enjoyed?
Um, I just like the fact that they had so many pieces of Clone Wars in this. Seeing all of the battles, the battle sequence with young Ahsoka, that whole sequence in the World Between Worlds was awesome to me, because it's the first time we've seen that on the screen in that, or on the even the small screen. Um, I liked the fact that it was cinematic in that regard, and I liked that they brought all these pieces in from a cameo perspective. There wasn't a lot of
So
oh wait, one that I loved.
I'm wondering
Um,
if it's the same thing that I was gonna mention right now.
what were you going to mention?
You're the actor of the century, Tamora Morrison. It has a voice cameo, and this is Captain Rex or whatever the fuck he's called.
Yeah, I mean, I get the Captain Rex thing, because it's yes, he's played clones and voiced clones in other shows as well.
I
He is
thought you
the
would have just gone from 6 to midnight, like, oh, Tamora Morrison. I think I heard him. I heard him.
and I did in a way, but he didn't like get to play the character, which he may when they bring back out like because they don't tell you how Rex dies, so he could come back, if you will. But I want to say his name's Flynn Rider, uh Ryder Azadi, Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown. Yeah, yeah. I forgot about him.
Clancy
Yep.
Brown showing up as the character he voiced in Rebels
That was
was
cool.
awesome for me. I was like, I know that guy. It's the guard from Shawshank in Star Wars. Yes.
And the Kurgan, for God's sake, from Highlander.
Oh, the Kurgan.
Oh man.
But yeah, I thought that those were there were some deep cuts that hit for me, and I love seeing Chopper in this. Chopper, a very R2D2 ish, opinionated and salty droid that in that TV series, in that cartoon series, was awesome. Big Chopper
So
fan.
there was one point with when Hera's son comes off the ship and he's like, "Can I go play, mom?" or something to that effect, right? It's like, Chopper, you go with him. Just be careful. It's like, is that droid gonna protect him? Like,
That
is that
that
really what
droid's
you
gonna
thought?
commit war crimes. Like that droid is capable, according to the
Okay.
cartoon.
All right, okay. So one thing I wanted to make sure that I brought up. So Ariana Greenblatt, who played young Ahsoka, was also young Gamora in Infinity War, which is really
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. She's just a different
Very
color in
awesome.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Different
I don't
tone.
see I
of
don't see
you
color,
didn't
so
see the difference between green and orange?
nah, I don't see color. I just see people for who they are.
Oh, well, you're a good person.
Although I saw the hell out of that green makeup on Hera, so good
And
God.
you didn't mind.
Oh man. Like seriously, I full Captain Kirk. Sign me up. Let's do this. Ewan McGregor, if he's ever out of the picture, I'm up next.
I'm
Going
sure your
for it.
wife will love to hear that.
Friend of the podcast, so it's kind of it
Yeah,
works
it's
out.
okay. It's okay.
So
It's okay. It's okay.
yeah.
It's the tendrils that throw me off, right?
So that is what throws me off. I was like, so what does that feel? Does that just feel like just flesh? And same thing with Ahsoka's hair or whatever it is,
It's
right?
not
Like
hair. It's the same.
just
There's a name for it that I'm sure like the deep fandom, if they've gotten this far in the
oh
podcast, which I
man.
doubt, would light me up for. But yeah, it's part of her race's situation.
Yeah, I find that so weird, man. Like it's just such and Hera's too. Because I thought the same thing when was it Jedi when we first saw someone with
Yeah.
that species. I was like, what the hell are those? Like just like a
Head
weird thing,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't
Head
know.
wang.
Jeez. Um, yeah. With okay, so we talked about the show. Anything else that were you satisfied with the arc as it went through?
At first, I was really the last episode pissed me off a lot because I was like,
Mm.
why are you not resolving any of this?
I I thought the same thing. I
I
wasn't mad about it. I wasn't mad about it.
so when I say mad, I'm frustrated because there is no talk of season 2. They haven't like
Yeah,
pre-shots like Mandalorian, even Mandalorian, who they ran season 1 are like, we don't know if everybody's gonna like this, but we did a thing. Like you knew you're gonna greenlight Ahsoka season 2, but Star Wars lately has announced things and not done them. Like the
yeah,
Rogue Squadron movie, sidebar, that was an amazing series of books pre-Disney buyout, much like the Thrawn books, like amazing books by Michael Stackpole that I was so stoked to see a movie about. There's so much good material to make a movie about, and Patty Jenkins. And then, yeah, we're
yeah.
not doing it now because we're no, we did
Is
such a
that
bad
official?
job with these.
They're not doing
She's
it.
out. She's out.
Mm,
And in my understanding, it's just not happening. And so many other things that were supposed to happen just aren't happening. Like Disney has shifted. Has shifted so much to their streaming service and made those shows either political or fan service. The Marvel shows and the other shows, right? Everything's only coming out on Disney Plus and only this, that the theatrical releases they're so scared to put out because every big release movie is losing so much money that
yeah.
I don't know that what's going to happen. And I don't know who to be mad at about it because I want to really like Kathy Kennedy because of all the things she's done throughout her career. But if you look at it as like just over her control of Lucasfilm, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And I love Filoni, but he also self-serves and brings back a lot of his own content, i.e. this series, right? And says all the Filoni stuff is what we're going to feature here. But he's in line to do a Star Wars movie, but there's no fucking release date on it. And
Yeah.
SAG has been on strike forever and ever continuing. So they could write a script, they could have it planned, but Disney could keep losing money. And, you know, as a stockholder, you're furious, I'm sure, as a part
Owner, part
owner,
owner.
as a part owner. But I don't know what I'm getting, and I don't know if I'm going to get any more. So the fact that they left, there are so many threads in the wind. The obvious thread of what happens to Ahsoka now, what happens with Thrawn back in the real world, right? Back in the actual galaxy, the Balin Skull like outing in quest on that planet has huge deep cut implications on what force wielders could be brought out of exile. Like there's so many things that I'm like, there's not another episode of this.
Yeah. I thought there was another 2 episodes after the end of that one. Because originally I thought it was only 6. I was like, oh, cool, there's more. And so after 8, I was like, how come it's not showing next episode? And I was like, that's how it ended? That's it? And so I was like, yeah, I was a little bit not mad or angry or frustrated. I was just like, oh, okay. I
I
guess that's
like
it then.
I like my Star Wars to have at least some level of conclusion. They ended this like Empire Strikes Back. Like everybody and again, if you look at it, it's so they touch on so many amazing Star Wars things. The action sequences in this are great. The deep cut characters, even bringing back Anakin, all of that is so good. And then they hit you with the
Interesting.
Empire. They hit you with the Empire ending, and like when Empire came out, you knew they were going to make another movie. There's no way they weren't going to make another movie. I don't know that they're going to make Ahsoka season 2 and not
Interesting
just take it to a film.
Interesting that you said that the action was great because it was good, but a lot of people are critiquing the lightsaber scenes. And I saw this short video, the reasoning as to why the lightsaber scenes aren't as like crazy like Ray Park scenes is because they use a different type of prop for lightsabers now, so it's a lot heavier as opposed to like the really thin ones that they used for the original trilogy and the sequel, the prequel trilogy. So, yeah, but no, I had no problem with it. I like the action. One thing that I was a little bit confused about, and I was wondering if I was missing a Easter egg or callback to the Rebels series, is that when Ezra shows up and says, "Hey, Hera," the look on her face is almost like I thought you died or you should be dead. Like it wasn't like a genuine happy, like I'm glad you're here, or even like a shocked look. So I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead, as great as she is and as green as she didn't play that last scene right. I think confusion is okay, but it was almost the way that I took it as a casual viewer because I didn't know I didn't read anything on purpose just because I didn't want to have preconceived notions on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, oh, I think they used to bang. And she's like, oh, he's going to be mad that I have a kid with someone else or something to that effect. Like, or how do
Yeah.
I explain this to the kid? That's what I thought. But probably not the case. So,
Well, I think so. Not seeing Rebels and not knowing the bond between what was the crew, right?
mhm.
Ezra, Ahsoka, or Ezra, Sabine, and Hera. If Ezra showed up, where's Sabine? So if she's both happy and like, oh fuck, is Sabine dead? Like you got to look at it like you're supposed to be dead. What are you doing here? Where's Sabine? How? What? It? All of these things.
Oh, they didn't. For some reason, I thought they closed that loop because I thought Ahsoka contacted her, but maybe not. Maybe I
No.
was just imagining
Yeah.
things. So,
No.
okay,
No.
yeah, I guess I could see that. Um, but yeah,
And I don't mean to
with
mansplain Star Wars, even though I've done that for about 2 hours at this point.
for me, it's just like I thought that scene was a little bit strange. The only thing I didn't like about Ezra is that he's very optimistic. And I'm assuming he was the same person in Rebels.
Similar.
Okay. So that I'm okay with. Because there's consistency. I just don't see the consistency for Ahsoka in the small portion of content that I've seen with her in it. But hey, it is what it is. Like that's did I enjoy the series? Well, I guess we'll have to find out once we ask that pivotal question at the end. But anything else that you have in regards to like Ahsoka, the other cast members in this, anything like that?
No, I thought that the casting, everything about it was great. I was so excited about it, and want to know that there's more coming out, so the last episode can be like, oh yeah, it was a great cliffhanger, and then they got into the next season. But now at this point, there we could not see this character or this storyline continued for 2 years.
I mean, same thing for Mandalorian, right?
But they ended Mandalorian.
I
They put
guess.
him in a place where he's accessible, but do they need to do the adventures of Din Djarin?
Sure.
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think it serves the greater purpose. They don't need to do gun smoke on on whatever planet that was with Apollo Creed.
And bring back Sabine because I thought she was awesome. Like that is a or even cross her over into the Mandalorian series. And maybe Bo-Katan is the head of that, and then
They
she
know
just
each other.
happens to swing in.
Like they've interacted in Star Wars.
Yeah, I think that's the route that they should go. Now, some people might be like, "Oh, they're just trying to do like an all-female Mandalorian thing." Like, no, that's not it. I just really liked those characters, and I could see them playing off of each other. But obviously, she is Ahsoka's Padawan, so that's another thing that could be very interesting to see. Just I don't know if I would do a series of it, but I don't know, maybe just do like one of those Star Wars specials, come out with a Star Wars special, and it's like, hour 15 minutes, and it just kind of shows like Sabine's Sabine's jersey Sabine's journey as a Jedi, so that way we can kind of get like a little bit of growth for that character.
Yeah, like a
But
middle ground.
yeah,
So they're supposed to do another Tales of the Jedi, another animated Tales of the Jedi that comes out next year. So they're probably going to touch more of this. They're supposed to talk about they're supposed to do some episodes on Balin, which will be good to give
that would be
backstory
cool.
there.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the animated stuff is they can hit like those folks while the voice actors are in SAG, they can have this like in the can ready to go and then add voice actors later.
Yeah.
But I think that the immediate future for Star Wars is still going to be in animated. Like there's series that are supposed to come out in 2024. Like there's a good amount of Star Wars supposed to come out in 2024. But none of it is this. None of it is Ahsoka.
Well, although the conversation about Ahsoka has come to an end, I need to ask one important question for you, Mark, the Resident Jedi. When it comes to Ahsoka, can you do this all day?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. As frustrating as the ending is, all of the fan service during it, the continuation of so many timelines, love it. If I could get this kind of Star Wars edition on a yearly basis, I'd just be a happy fan. Right. I'd love the fact that I mean, each piece that we get, I feel like makes up for not getting it for so long. And we're finally getting things at a pace that I think is what fans deserve. But who am I? The real question is casual fan, part-time Avenger, and wearer of yellow. Can you do this all day? I love the yellow cup too. Dude,
Color
you
coordinated.
need a yellow lightsaber, which
I think the yellow lightsaber does look cool, and I do like
Jedi
Ahsoka's
Temple
white
Guard.
lightsabers. Yeah.
Jedi Temple Guard.
So you heard my issues with the Jedi. The Jedi suck. Sith or the Empire all the way. Which I used to be all Jedi, but yeah, I found myself throughout this series. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed kind of finding out new people besides like Luke, Han, and Leia. So I enjoyed it. Like I think if it wasn't for Sabine and Ezra, and the way that they played those characters and brought them to life in live action, I don't think I would have enjoyed this as much. So I like the fact that we were able to see a new group of people, or well, I was able to see a new group of people in the Star Wars universe. There was plenty of callbacks that even I was able to pick up. Obviously, you have the Tamora Morrison in there, and you have 3PO, and you have uh, Carson in it. So it was just like, okay, cool. I'm enjoying this. I'm having a good time. And I will say that I can do this all day because I like Star Wars, believe it or not. And I found myself some characters that I can be like, oh, I like those characters. And that hasn't happened. Even from the sequel trilogy, I didn't necessarily like Rey. I didn't necessarily like Finn. I liked Poe, but at the same time, towards the end, I was like, yeah, maybe I don't like him as much. The best character I liked in the sequel trilogy was BB-8, and that's kind of tough. Like when the droid is your favorite character, probably means the other characters aren't so great and the movies aren't so great. So going into this, great droids. David Tennant, by the way, we forgot to mention, great voice acting for Hu Yang. I thought a lot of his comedic performance and that was just made the show. So 3 characters: Hu Yang, along with Sabine and Ezra, and then if I just have an alien crush on Hera. But other than that, like, yeah, the show is pretty solid. Action was good, and it got me to be a little bit more interested in Star Wars. So I kind of got out of it what I was hoping to get out of it. So yeah, I can do this all day.
Man, when's the last time we had consensus? I love it. I love it.
I think we had
And
last episode.
yeah,
The
maybe.
last episode we had
Yeah,
consensus.
probably. And for the record, Chopper over BB-8 all day. If they gave you more Chopper, I feel like you would be a Chopper fan.
I'm sure I would be, but I like BB-8. His little beach ball body rolling around in the sand is just kind of cute to me. So I don't know. I enjoy it.
Well,
But
hopefully y'all enjoyed this episode and this talk track. Let us know. Give us comments. I'm excited for the next time we get to talk about Star Wars, next year sometime.
we could go back in the catalog if you want us to hear, or if you want to hear us talk about some of the different Star Wars movies, maybe do a rewatch of some of them, or even maybe a watch along. I don't know. Who knows? If you want to hear more opinions about Star Wars, we're more than happy to. Or you can go back and check out some of the previous episodes where we debate which was a better movie, Empire or Return of the Jedi. Or if you go over our Star Wars ranking episode, you can certainly check those out too. But until next time, I'm Dan the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark the Resident Jedi.
If you ask really nice, we may even do a Star Wars holiday special episode. You never know. Comment, like, subscribe. May the force be with you.
And also with you.